Surt may burn Yggdrasil, and Loki may claim the death of Balder, but the most frightening figure in Ragnarok is the Fenrir wolf. I couldn't end my discussion of Ragnarok without discussing Fenrir. Not only is he the end of Odin, but he's the only one of Loki's monstrous children who have a real personal history with the gods. Fenrir was the oldest child of Loki and the ogress Angrboda, and while his siblings Jormungr and Hel found their own place in the cosmology of Norse mythology, he was the only one who was welcomed in Asgard. However, even then, the Aesir were afraid of him, and the only one who was brave enough to feed him was the god Tyr. Now, Tyr is an interesting figure. We don't know a lot about him, but there's a lot to speculate on. The etymology of his name positions him as a sky god, and possibly even a chief god, but there is no textual evidence for this in Norse mythology, and we can't really draw parallels between him and more archaic sky gods like Uranus. What we do know is that he's honorable and trustworthy, at least to Fenrir, which is saying something, seeing how the wolf doesn't have much reason to trust any of the other gods. But the gods saw how much the wolf grew every day, and knew that all the prophecies foretold that it was destined to harm them. So they went about trying to subdue him, but they had to be careful. He wasn't a normal wolf. They couldn't just chain him up or kill him. So they went about posing their attempts as games. Hey Fenrir, come over here. We're gonna chain you down. See if you can break through. I bet you can't. Well, he always did. With every failed attempt, the gods grew more and more anxious. Now, in Norse mythology, if you need something built, you go to the dwarves. And this is exactly what a desperate Odin did. He went and he commissioned a special rope, Gleipnir, made out of 6 impossibilities. The noise of cats' footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. How do you solve a problem like Fenrir? How do you catch a wolf and pin him down? The gods presented Gleipnir to the wolf, but he had grown wary of this game, and was suspicious of the new rope. If you bind me in such a way that I am unable to free myself, then you would betray me and abandon me. The wolf was wise, and told them that the only way they would get to tie him down was if one of them put their hand between his sharp teeth. The only one trustworthy enough, or even noble enough to do this was Tyr, who stepped forward and put his hand in the wolf's mouth. Fenrir was bound, and this time for good. He struggled and struggled, but he couldn't break free of his bonds. Angered, he bit down on Tyr's hand with a sickening crunch. The gods quickly tied the rest of the rope off and wedged a sword into the wolf's mouth. Fenrir's anger turned to hatred as the Aesir walked away, abandoning him just as he had predicted. And once he got free, he would not stop till his revenge was had. This is an interesting story because it contextualizes Ragnarok and shows the length that the gods would go to avoid their fate. But it also serves as a parallel to Fenrir's father, Loki. Whether Loki is sympathetic or not is largely dependent on the myth you're looking at, but he does have some stuff in common with his son. They were both outsiders who were brought in to Asgard, but continually mistrusted, and eventually imprisoned by the gods. Now, Loki deserves a great deal of mistrust, and his imprisonment is not unjust. He made decisions that led to it. But even if he hadn't, what would have stopped the gods from doing it regardless? Fenrir is condemned by his heritage and his fate, but it's also that condemnation that secures the destruction he will bring in Ragnarok. It's a tragic tale of survival and self-preservation. Well, that's a bummer, but then again, that's mythology. I'll see you tomorrow, where I'll wrap up my thoughts on Ragnarok.